Hey everybody, here we are on the Succeed Without Selling Salon, and we are talking about prospecting today. Now, prospecting is an interesting thing. Different people have different definitions of it, and what I'm concerned about is how people are going about it, because prospecting is really about gaining a meeting, gaining a conversation. It's not about selling. And sometimes prospecting and marketing can sort of overlap each other, because you can have, some people can think of prospecting like when they're networking. So one of the things I want us to think about is, what are we prospecting for? Okay, because it's a question and we need to think about it. We are not prospecting for a sale. And that is a mistake I think a lot of salespeople make. So if you think you're prospecting for a sale, then that's the direction you're going in. That's the mindset that you're in. And that's how you're surveying all the people you're meeting or the people you're contacting. If you flip it and you say, I am prospecting for the ability to have a conversation with somebody, to learn more about who they are, where they're at, and where they might fit into my world, that's a very different thing. That's the kind of thing that is really valuable for a couple of reasons. One, because that's really why you're prospecting. But two, because it gets you out of that sales mindset. So now you're in a mindset where you're just saying, okay, you know what? I just want to find out who's out there. I just want to see who I feel like I would want to have a conversation with. So then I can learn how they play in my community. They might be a prospect. They might be a referral source. They might be a colleague. They might be a partner on a program or something. I mean, who knows, right? You don't know. And that, I think, more than anything is my point, is that we don't know who's out there until we find out. And if we enter the conversation with a belief that whoever's out there is a prospective, is a prospect, we're going to have some really bad conversations. So think about it. Do you like being a prospect to everyone you meet? Do you like it when people on LinkedIn connect with you and then all of a sudden are selling to you or trying to get you to buy their thing? They're convinced they have the greatest thing in the world and that you need it and you think it's you're going to think it's the greatest thing in the world. Chances are good you don't like it. Well, you know what those people are doing? They're prospecting for a sale. They're not prospecting for discovery. So I look at the sales process and I say, there are aspects to the sales process. We start with, identifying the value that we bring, who it's valuable to, what our target audiences look like. Then we head into the prospecting so that we can build relationships and we can learn about who's out there and we can identify through conversation who is a potential prospect. And then we move into the conversation point or the aspect of the sales process where now we are having that discovery, that really deep discovery conversation. That's the sales part, because we're not selling, we're learning. We're identifying everything we can about this person or company so we can figure out whether we have something that is valuable to them and that they need and that will help them solve a problem. So you see, prospecting, if we keep thinking about prospecting as, I got to find business, I got to make a sale, we're going to be, on the one hand, I think pretty disappointed. On another hand, we're going to be pretty unattractive to the people we're meeting, and we're going to miss out on some really valuable relationships because we're looking at it in the wrong way. We're pursuing it in the wrong way. So my vote is that we sort of turn it on its head. I mean, that's how I feel about sales anyway. I think we have to turn the whole thing on its head. So let's turn it on its head and let's see who's out there. Like, let's approach networking and doing prospecting research. Prospecting research is a great thing to do when you know what your target audience looks like. My word of caution is understand that not everybody in that target audience is going to be a good prospect. So, for example, the easy way for me to do this is to say, if CPAs are one of your target markets, that doesn't mean that every CPA you meet is a prospect. What it means is there are CPAs who are, there are CPAs who aren't. And your job is to do the discovery to figure out who's who. So my vote is don't approach prospecting with, okay, well, here's my target audience. And if I reach out to all these people, if I'm, good enough, I should be able to convince them that they need what I have to sell because I know they're a good, they're a good target audience, therefore they're a good prospect. And the truth is not necessarily. I want to say no, they're not, but that's not even necessarily true. They are not necessarily a good prospect just because they're in the pool, because there's a whole bunch of other aspects about them that are going to determine whether they are a good prospect or not. So that's our job. Our job is not to be convincing. Our job is not to be persuasive. Our job is to be curious. Our job is to be is to go on a discovery mission to find out as much as we can about someone or some company so that we can really honestly identify where they fit. So let's talk about where we prospect and how people are going about prospecting. So you create your target, your different target markets, and you say, okay, I have 3 target markets, and I need to identify who's in those markets. So you have criteria, you have description. You go ahead and you do this. Create the list. Now your choices are that you can go out and you can reach out to them to try and sell them something. Let's not. Or you can go out and you can try to have a conversation with them so you can find out about them. You can also use the internet to do a ton of research on them so you can find out as much as you can just from news stories and their website or, their community, whatever it is. Find out as much as you can so that then when you do reach out to have a conversation, you already know a little something about them. You already have something to start a conversation about, okay? So if you think about it, so let's use CPAs again as our example. So you have a list of CPAs, right? Well, now you got to research them. You got to find out how big is the firm? How long have they been in business? Where are they geographically? Can you tell from their website or from their social media activity or from news outlets what their values are, what their philosophy of doing business is, how successful they are, how they work with vendors, how they, anything that's going on. Maybe there's been news stories about them that say something that they need. You want to find out as much information as you can. And then it's valuable to find out if you know anyone there or if you know anyone who knows someone there. Like, can you get an introduction to them? And it's not to sell them, it's to have the conversation. So there's that. You can do it that way. You can um, subscribe. If they have a blog, you could subscribe to their blog, and then you could just check it out and get used to who they are. You can start by just engaging in a conversation to find out what they need. We're in an interesting time right now. Welcome to the Salon. For those of you popping in, we're in a really interesting time where we're emerging, we think, from the pandemic. We're trying to figure out who is still out there, what targets are viable, what opportunities are available. So part of prospecting is taking a look at the environment and asking yourself, is there another use for this thing that I sell? Is there something that has come out of this world that we're in that now presents an opportunity for a whole new target? And if there is, boy, you really want to do some prospecting to have conversations with that target, to learn more about them and what they're experiencing and what they're going through. So we're in a really weird time. And I think, part of the time that we're in really emphasizes the value of seeking conversation. And that's it. Because there's so much we don't know about how people are dealing with our current landscape, how businesses are dealing with it. What are their struggles? What are their successes? What have they learned? What are they expecting? Right? All the questions you're asking, they're probably asking too. So to be able to engage people just in conversation with no other motivation, like let go of the selling motivation and say to yourself, I just want to connect and I just want to learn. And when I do, I'm going to take that information and I'm going to figure out what it means and therefore what to do next. Because that information is really valuable. That information is going to give you an idea of who you can be prospecting toward and who maybe you need to leave alone for right now. Or who has a really pressing need that you could potentially help them with, so you need to be convening the conversation. So let's look at prospecting a little differently and let go of the selling idea. I think what we're going to find is that we are developing much more meaningful relationships with people and businesses, and we're finding out how these different organizations and these different people really help us and we help them and we build this community around our business. And boy, is that powerful. It is so much more powerful than trying to sell. That's not what prospecting is really about. I mean, at the end of the day, prospecting, we'll say it's about two things. The first thing is which organizations or people are really the ones you want to be having a conversation with about, where you can be learning more about them because there might be an opportunity for you to provide them with a product or a service. But there's another pool, and that is resources. People or companies that are resources for you and your connections, or are good referral partners, or are good partners, good colleagues, accountability partners, who know, I mean, the list is so long. And the only way you're going to know is if you're open to the discovery, if you're open to the conversation, if you're not so pigeonholing that everything you're doing is going toward people as if they were a potential customer. So those are my prospecting tips for today. You can find more in Succeed Without Selling. It is now available as an ebook on Amazon. So feel free to go over there and get yourself a copy. And join me next week when we will be talking about effectively using LinkedIn. So that's going to be a really great conversation as well. So thank you. Continue to be well, and we'll see you next week.